You can read every finance book ever written. You can memorize the formulas, the ratios, the historical returns. And you can still go broke, not because you did the math wrong, but because your brain was never built to handle money rationally. Money isn't a spreadsheet problem. It's a psychology problem wearing a spreadsheet's clothes. There are specific, predictable ways your mind sabotages you around money. Mental traps so common that almost everyone falls into at least one of them without ever noticing. Here are 12 of the biggest ones, what they've cost real people, and how to actually get out. 2 people look at the exact same stock. 1 buys, 1 sells. Neither one is stupid. They're just running different software. Every person's relationship with money was written by their own history. A parent who lost everything, a market crash they lived through, a lucky break they can't stop chasing. Someone who graduated into the 2008 crash sees risk everywhere they look. Someone who got into crypto in 2017 sees volatility as completely normal. Same facts, completely different lenses. You are not seeing the market clearly. You're seeing it through the one tiny sliver of experience you happen to have lived. And that sliver feels like 100% of the truth. In the early 1970s, a Seattle teenager got access to one of the only high schools in America with a computer terminal. That accident of timing handed him thousands of extra hours of practice before almost anyone else on Earth had touched a keyboard. His name was Bill Gates. His closest friend at that same school, Ken Devins, was just as brilliant, just as obsessed with computers, and died in a climbing accident before he even graduated. One boy got an impossible stroke of luck, the other got an impossible stroke of risk. Neither outcome was really about skill. That's the uncomfortable truth sitting underneath every success story you admire. You never see the whole equation. So stop copying people's outcomes. Start studying their patterns instead. Patterns survive bad luck. Outcomes don't repeat. In late 2021, it felt like everyone was getting rich off crypto, your coworker, your Uber driver, some guy on TikTok with a hot new coin. Thousands of tokens launched with no product, no roadmap, nothing but a name and a promise. This is the next Bitcoin, don't miss it. People weren't buying an asset. They were buying a story that felt too good to interrupt with a question. By 2022, most of those coins were worth 0. The math was always available. Almost nobody checked it because the story felt better than the spreadsheet. Before you act on any financial decision, ask one blunt question. Am I doing this because the data says so, or because I want it to be true? In 2021, a 29-year-old was running the second largest crypto exchange on Earth, worth an estimated $20 billion on paper. Politicians praised him. Magazines called him the next Warren Buffett. His name was Sam Bankman-Fried, and behind the scenes he was quietly mixing customer funds, not to survive, but to chase more. More scale, more status, more headlines. Enough was never in the plan. Within a year, the whole thing collapsed. Billions of dollars gone, and he was in handcuffs. That's what happens when there's no ceiling. The richer you get without ever defining enough, the more dangerous every next decision becomes. Decide today what enough actually looks like for you. If you never draw that line, nothing you earn will ever feel like it's enough. You see someone driving a car worth 6 figures and assume they've made it. What you don't see is the loan, the monthly payment, the stress underneath the leather seats. Wealth that you can actually see has usually already been spent. Real wealth is the money that's still sitting there, quietly, because someone chose not to spend it. Nobody claps when you skip the upgrade and put the money into an index fund instead. But that invisible, unglamorous choice made over and over for years is the entire mechanism of getting rich. Looking rich is expensive. Being rich is boring, on purpose. Tell someone the market is about to crash, and they lean in close. Tell them it will slowly triple over the next 20 years, and they check their phone. A 40% crash makes headlines. A 300% gain over 6 years barely gets noticed because setbacks are loud and fast and progress is slow and quiet. That's why pessimism always sounds smarter than it actually is. Real optimism isn't pretending nothing bad will ever happen. It's expecting bad news and staying in the game anyway, because the long-term chart has always bent upward eventually. Before you panic sell on a headline, ask yourself if it's actual insight or just fear wearing a nice suit. Picture a lawyer earning $250,000 a year. New car, private school, dinner out, 5 nights a week, a mortgage on a house that says, "I've made it." From the outside, that's wealth. From the inside, there's nothing saved. One layoff, one bad month, and the whole structure comes down because the lifestyle grew exactly as fast as the paycheck did. Savings isn't the money left over after you impress people. It's the gap between your ego and your income. You can't fully control the market. You can't always control your income. But how much you save, that's 100% yours every single month. Warren Buffett is worth roughly $160 billion. More than $150 billion of that arrived after he turned 65. He didn't get rich by finding one genius trade. He got rich by starting at age 10 and simply never stopping for 80 years straight. If he'd started investing in his 30s and retired at 65 like everyone else, you'd probably have never heard his name. Compounding doesn't reward the biggest swing. It rewards the longest streak. A good return held for decades without blowing it up will always beat a great return that only lasted 5 years. Since 1980, just 7% of the companies in a major US stock index have driven almost all of the market's net gains. Meanwhile, 40% of stocks fell more than 70% and simply never came back. Warren Buffett has owned hundreds of stocks in his career, but nearly all of his fortune traces back to about 10 of them, one of which was a quiet 1989 bet on Coca-Cola. That's what a real breakout looks like. Unglamorous, almost invisible, until it suddenly isn't. You don't need to be right most of the time. You need to still be in the game on the one day it happens because you never know in advance which day that is. Investing isn't free, even when you don't pay a single dollar in fees. Netflix stock returned more than 35,000% between 2002 and 2018, one of the greatest runs in market history. But for 94% of that entire stretch, it was trading below its previous all-time high. To collect that 35,000%, you had to sit through years of watching your own money look like a mistake. That discomfort isn't a sign something went wrong. It's the actual price of admission. Most people try to dodge that fee by jumping in and out, chasing the next sure thing, and end up paying for it twice, in missed gains and bad timing. There is no version of building real wealth that skips the ride. You think you know exactly what you'll want in 10 years. You almost certainly don't. Psychologists call this the end of history illusion. We can clearly see how much we've changed over the last decade, but we assume the next one will leave us exactly as we are today. The goals you're building your entire financial plan around right now may not even be your goals in 10 years. That's why rigid, extreme financial plans quietly set people up for regret. The fix isn't to stop planning. It's to build in room to become someone slightly different, because you will. You see someone your age post a huge crypto win, or a trader on the internet making bold, confident calls, and you feel like you're falling behind. But you almost never see the rest of the picture. Their timeline, their risk tolerance, what they're actually willing to lose. A day trader chasing a move this week is not playing the same game as someone quietly investing for a retirement 30 years away. Copy the wrong person's moves and you inherit all of their risk with none of their reasoning. Before you act on anyone's advice, ask one question first. Are we even playing the same game? In 1981, a researcher studying happiness in America found something that still holds up today. The single strongest predictor of well-being wasn't income. It was how much control someone felt they had over their own time, not the car, not the house. Control. That's the actual return on getting your finances in order. Not stuff, but the ability to wake up and decide how your day goes, without asking anyone's permission. Everything else people chase with money, status, comfort, admiration, is really just a clumsy attempt to buy that feeling back. None of these 12 traps are about intelligence. Smart people fall into every single one of them, constantly, because the problem was never what you know. It's what your emotions do with what you know at 2 in the morning when the market is down and your plan is the only thing standing between you and a bad decision. The people who actually build wealth aren't smarter than everyone else. They just built a life boring enough and humble enough to survive their own worst moments and let time do the rest.